So my name is R.T. Justice. I am, by no fault of my own, the longest serving board member currently with the Secular Coalition, and as a result, I just kind of fell upward into the chair position. It's a real honor to be representing the organization in that capacity. There's a lot of really great messaging that came through. Christina, you and I are kindred spirits, and in a lot of ways that we don't even know each other, but a lot of what you spoke about spoke to me personally. I come from a religious family that is very secular. My mother is a Democrat, my father is a Republican, and my father literally reads his Bible in his bedroom, and that is the full extent of his religious expression, and he wishes that more people were like him. And my mother, who's very active in her church, really respects the strong separation of church and state. So I inherited that, even though I did not inherit their religiosity. And so I appreciate that example being given to me. Unfortunately for them, I'm a much louder person than they are, and I'm very proudly non-religious. But I do support the notion of secularism, the idea of building coalition. It's right there in our name. And I do appreciate folks like my family who, despite having their own religious interests, have no interest in that religion dictating the well-being of other people within their community. And when you find those people, keep them, because you need somebody to talk to those communities when you can't. And I'm certainly in that camp more often than not lately. My way of coming into this organization was through the Secular Student Alliance. So I wanted to point out the fact that Glendale Community College's Secular Student Alliance is here today. And that organization, broadly speaking, has done wonders. And I'm really glad that Glendale is continuing the tradition of the SSA in Arizona. And our youngest board member, Sammy, has also resurrected the ASU SSA. And although he's not here, I hope he can feel my gratitude wherever he is out there in the world. He's probably doing wonderful things that'll make us look good just by proximity to him. Lindsay threw me up here extemporaneously, and she said, well, he loves to talk, and that's true. And the only thing I love to hear more than the sound of my own voice is having a captive audience. So thank you for providing that to me. It's really meaningful. I come from an agricultural background. I farm and ranch in the West Valley, and so I am surrounded by a very religious community all of the time and always. And when we talk about Christian dominion attitudes, Christian theocratic attitudes, they are very well represented within that community of people. And we had talked briefly earlier about moments of quiet reflection and how that can kind of serve as a back door to prayer in the classroom. Well, I will tell you from personal experience, having fought a knockdown, drag-out fight, just to have that very thing, just to be quiet for 30 seconds and reflect rather than making an appeal to Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, the one and only, that can lift us up. That sounds a lot better to me than what I've had to deal with, but Jeannie was certainly right that these little innocuous things tend to stack up in ways we don't anticipate. And we kind of wind up in this world where we look around and go, how did we get here? How did we wind up in this moment? And I think if there's one thing over the last 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 years, depending on your involvement in this kind of thing, maybe you're less surprised than others, but it's really easy, especially when you've been in the game for a while, to be disheartened. And I don't think that's the right approach to take, because the lesson we can learn and take to heart is that we can do the same things that these people have done for the right reasons. They have proved, especially lately, that a lot of the things that we expect from our elected officials and from our people participating in democracy were really just norms. They were rules that we kind of came up with. They're not codified. And so you can do almost anything, and despite maybe some mild performative punishment, things like censure that doesn't mean absolutely anything whatsoever, you can just do whatever. And so we can look at that and go, my God, or not my God, but their God, these people are going to get away with anything. Well, by God, that means we can get away with anything. And we should get away with anything. I was 15 years old the first time I was tear gassed down here, protesting Nazis. And I'm nostalgic for that time, because it was a lot easier to identify the fascists, you know? They wore cute little uniforms and they had cute little hand gestures that made it really clear. And it's not that we don't notice that now, because we've watched it happen. But it's harder to communicate that to people that aren't paying attention, right? When someone's Sieg Heiling and talking about the Jewish problem in front of the Capitol, you can point to that and go, that is a fascist. And now we have to go, well, when you see a flag that's white with a little pine tree on the front of it that says, you know, appeal to heaven, that's a fascist to me. Well, I've never seen that before. It's not a swastika. It's not anything that clearly communicates that value. And you have to go, yes, but it communicates that value to other people. You know, at this point, I have to have these kind of quiet conversations with people in the corner in the agricultural community, because there's a huge resurgence in small farmers in this country, and this is kind of another insidious way that we see this creep of Christian nationalists coming in. Luke Douglas, who's a former board member and former member of our legal team, who's still a wonderful supporter of our organization and the Human Society of Greater Phoenix, he and I have had a lot of conversations about this because we occupy the same weird corners in the periphery of the American experience. There are a lot of people that participate in what they refer to as homesteading, okay? And homesteading could be you just want to go and try to be self-sufficient on a couple of acres somewhere in Williams, Arizona. But homesteading also means that maybe you're a Christian nationalist that's hiding out in the, you know, Eastern Oregon, stockpiling firearms and distributing QAnon material and running a complicated social media network on the internet that your neighbors might not know about. And so something as innocuous as, gee, I'd like to go try to farm on my own somewhere, has also been subverted in that way. And like I said, it makes it harder to communicate. So when we have conversations about these flags at the Capitol building and other flags that represent this, and, you know, some Let's Go Brandon trying to explain a meme to people that, you know, the conservatives that are too cowardly to put the F word on the back of their pickup truck when they're driving around town. You know, it seems like a crazy uphill battle, but the more we communicate these things and what they represent, and the more we're willing to have conversations in our communities about what this can entail, what this is leading to, and this is how we got here. It didn't happen magically overnight. We didn't have a bunch of people get bussed into to the January 6th insurrection on a whim, you know, over a week of talking about maybe I don't like, you know, the election results. This was a building movement that precedes Trump. It preceded a lot of the things that we see. To Christina's point, this takes us back to arguments that we've been having since the origins of this nation, but it's manifesting itself in a way that's really scary and disheartening. But I'm telling you here today, you don't have to be disheartened. We can have these conversations. There are people you interact with every day, and it's us, it's people here that are evangelizing and proselytizing to our neighbors to make them aware of what this problem is. Because my guess is that the 50% of Democrats and the 70%, 80% of Republicans that have those attitudes don't reflect on that very often. And I think you could at least push back on the notion, even if it's not what they're going to put on a census form or a survey, if you push back against that notion, the actions they take in the real world around them, we can see a lot of progress in that without having to feel this desperation and lack of hope. The church occupies a lot of people's lives, occupies the lives of many people, and also occupies a lot of those lives. And they do that by occasionally doing good things and good acts and that kind of stuff, and that's room for us to step up and take care too. I'm extremely critical of the Catholic Church for a number of reasons I don't need to explain to people here. The Catholic Church does have a large presence, but when we look at the Catholic Church's presence in South America, for instance, the Catholic Church was a force for anti-fascist activism against people like Pinochet and Project Condor and all of that good stuff. And so we see these examples of good people doing good acts, and those are the people that if we reach out and have a coalition with those people, if we adopt those attitudes and put ourselves in the forefront of things like pushing back against this fascist, white Christian nationalist movement, and I'm a fan of the word fascist when we describe it because that's what they want, we can make the same progress and occupy that space when we help our neighbors out, when we provide mutual aid to our friends in the community, when we help support food bank networks, when we help support soup kitchens. All of those things, those are real things we can do that make us feel good, that make us recognize the progress that we can make, and really put boots on the ground from our side to say, we can do that too. We don't just take up room on a ballot box, on a form, on election day. We take up space in our communities and we want to make them better. And we don't have to let churches and religious organizations occupy that space to whitewash the terrible things that they're doing away from all of that. So I don't have any pithy closing remarks here other than I believe in us. I believe in every one of you. I believe there is progress and real things we can do so we don't have to feel depressed and caved in all the time. You know, our world has gotten a lot smaller because of the pandemic, and a lot of that unintentional support that we've given each other just kind of casually by socializing and being there for one another has been stripped away. And I think that has left us feeling more despondent than we normally would be. But, you know, by God, if we're going to be forced to open up Arizona again when we feel kind of strange about that, even still, let's open up our communities as well, be there for each other, support one another, and keep just reinforcing the positivity that I know we all have when we're taking direct action. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being part of the solution to the problems we're facing. And thank you for putting up with my rambling extemporaneous presentation right now. So thank you very much.